Greetings everyone, Tim Anderson here, aka Renfell, and welcome to the latest video in my ongoing series of games that I play. This is a slightly different video for me because usually I'm doing either a review or I'm streaming something like Lord of the Rings Online or Star Wars: Old Republic when I play with my brother. This is going to be a weird one because this is like a preview video because it's not a review yet because I haven't played the game enough for this to be a review, but I'm finding this intriguing enough that I wanted to do a quick video to talk about it because this is an interesting game. It's called Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning. Up here is the title you can see. I've known about this game for I want to say about a year, and it's funny because um, I was looking at it a couple months back, maybe 3 months ago, kind of thinking, this looks, it sounds interesting. I like good RPGs, and there's really not a lot of negative stuff out there about this game. It's just a lot of people were somewhat underwhelmed as opposed to overwhelmed. And I decided to, read up on it a little bit. Was intrigued, but at the time I was just too busy with other things. It happened to pop up. So if you have PlayStation Plus for the month of November here, 2021, this is available on PlayStation Plus for free. So I got this as a freebie and was like, cool. I was actually wanting to check this out a few months ago. Um, so let's try it and see. And I played yesterday for, I want to say about 2 hours, first thing in the morning. And I liked it enough that I'm definitely going to play this all the way through and do a full review of it. But before I did that, I wanted to do an overview video to kind of talk about this game because it has a troubled history. This is one of those games where I knew about the inception of this many, many, many years ago. So I'm a veteran MMORPG player, and back in the day, there was an in the works MMORPG. And I'm being very vague right now because I don't have things open in front of me. I'm just going off the top of my head. Baseball. There was a baseball guy named Kurt Schilling. He's still around, but back in the day, he was really passionate about MMORPGs, and he decided to found a studio called 38 Studios, I believe, and got funding from the state of Massachusetts, as I recall, and tried to put together this big AAA MMORPG, and it got pretty deep in development. Like R.A. Salvatore came on and did like a 10,000 year backstory, and they had Todd McFarlane, who, like the guy who created Spawn and has done artwork for Spider-Man stuff, like came on and worked on artwork. Like there was a whole bunch of really famous people involved in this MMORPG way back in the day. But due to various circumstances and just knowing what it is and how difficult it is to make an MMORPG, ultimately that company ended up failing and went bankrupt. And the state, lost money. And if I remember correctly, there was like an auction to auction off the assets of the company to, try to recoup some of the losses. And eventually rights were sold, and a lot of the assets and world building and everything else was redone into a game called Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. That game launched back around 2012, and I think did well enough. It was just, it was recouping losses from the failed MMORPG. That went along, and at some point, I think around 2018, THQ Nordic, who is famous for buying up lots of properties that they see as valuable but affordable and then spinning those up and doing something to make them slightly more profitable so that they can recoup their investments. They picked up the rights to this and they did this remastered version, which is the Re-Reckoning. So this is a remastered version of a 2012 game, which in turn is sort of a hashed together mismatch of the remnants of what used to be or what was intended to be a AAA MMORPG many, many, many years ago in the early aughts. So to say this game has had a troubled history would be an understatement, I think. Um, but I was intrigued when I was reading up on this a few months back, because I was like, it sounded like a good MMORPG, and I like RPGs. I like games that have good stories and everything else. So when this came up for free, I was like, cool. I'm definitely gonna give this a shot this month. So right off the bat, after playing it, some of the things that jump out in my mind are the fact that it's very stylized graphics. So it's don't expect like Skyrim or some sort of high fidelity realistic graphics. I don't know that I would call the graphics old, even though they are a remastered version of older graphics. It's just it looks it's stylized, and some of that may be because of the fact that they're remastering an older product, but it is what it is. It doesn't look bad per se. It's just stylized. It features, at least from what I've seen so far, a very simplistic, linear design. So, I would think like maybe if I'm not mistaken, like the Fable games, like where you have lots of things that you can do and you have a pretty big world map, but the zones are very linear, and it is a zone-based game, so or level-based game, however you want to look at that. So everything like going through the dungeons or in the caverns, it's very much you have a linear path and you follow it and then you're done. And like even in the zones that I've seen so far in the open world, it's very linear. You're going from point A to point B. Um, I mean, we've seen many games have done this. Like more recently, thinking of a more modern version, like look at Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Like that game was not open world. That's a pretty linear game in the sense that the level design has a point A and a point B to get to, and some hidden stuff off to the sides. But for the most part, you're on the way through. Um, it seems to be like there are some layers of like I would say super detailed RPG in this from what I've seen so far, but also some very simplistic things. Here's an example of what I mean by that. So yeah, you have your traditional sort of trio of you could pick a melee character, it's not a melee character, but a might-based character, a finesse-based character, or a magic-based character, basically. So fighter, thief, mage, and then within there you can figure out, oh, I'm going to be sword and shield, or I'm going to be two-handed hammer, or I'm going to be daggers, or I'm going to be a bow, or I'm going to be a fire mage, or things of that nature. But what's interesting is like you can wear, at least from what I've seen, you can wear plate mail and use magic, and or you can wear plate mail and be a rogue. Like it doesn't appear that like plate mail has anything that offsets those things. So you can be a plate mail wearing, dual wielding, backstabbing rogue if you want to be. However, you get bonuses to your primary abilities and stats by wearing appropriate armor. As an example, the cloth for mages gives you a better regen rate, so that it's always going to be better to wear robes because you're going to be able to have more mana at your disposal. Makes sense, but it's not you're not being limited, you're just being given extra bonuses for playing a certain way. And then within those, you know, might, finesse, sorcery, whatever, there are then like classes where it's like the rogue class, the hunter class, the fighter, there's different things. So there are some traditional RPG elements here. And of course, you have a skill tree where you can choose from abilities and put points in those abilities, and those abilities then get more powerful. So that's all there. But the simplistic nature was like the fact that it's not so strict about the RPG rules that you can't wear plate mail if you're a mage. So I found that very intriguing. Combat it feels older. It definitely feels like an older game. Um, I wouldn't say that the controls are janky, but it's not as smooth as more modern games. Um, Action based, but I'm playing it on casual mode because I just care about it for the story, and I gotta say it's a cakewalk. You really don't have to worry about too much. Um, I was surprised when I got into the game and got past the tutorial and out into the main world, and I opened up the world map and I went, oh crap, there's actually a lot here. Like, there's a lot of game to explore. So I'm very intrigued to see how much gameplay I'm going to get out of this. I haven't looked at any sort of spoilers or anything like that, so I don't know the answer to that question yet. I'm just going into it and saying, I'm going to test this out and play it like an RPG that I've never played before. One thing I found really intriguing, and the novelty wore off very quickly, but I thought it was a cool little, extra kind of mini game feature, was they actually have lock picking in this game, which a lot of games don't do. And it's very simplistic in the sense that you have, your little mini game, and you have a lock pick that you can move to the left or to the right, and then depending on the angle of that and the difficulty of the lock depends on how far you can get that slider across the top. And if you've misplaced the angle and you're sliding across the top, it'll break your lock picks, and you need lock picks to open locks. So some of that is based on your skill level, but also, you know, the way I understand how that mechanic works is that the higher the difficulty, the stricter they are on the exact positioning of the angle of that pick in the lock. And on the harder locks that I've tried so far, you might break 3 or 4 lock picks trying to find that right angle before you can get that slider all the way across. So again, the novelty did sort of wear off pretty early on, to the point where I'm like, I'm just going to put a lot of points into lockpicking to make this easier. And I'm playing a rogue-based character anyway, so that makes sense. But it was kind of an interesting thing that I don't think you see in a ton of RPGs. Some of them do it, but like most games, like I'm thinking like Solasta or Baldur's Gate 3 even, it's just you have a lockpicking skill and the thing has a difficulty level and you either succeed or fail based on that. They don't actually have a mini game thing for it, so that was kind of fun. And as far as the storyline goes, I'm intrigued by what they've teased so far, and the way that I kind of left my first session was finding out that my weaves of destiny don't exist. The Fate Finder, or I think is what he's called, tried to read my history and realized that I don't appear to have any tangible threads connecting me to the real world, or to the fate, and I've been reborn, out of this thing, this well that these gnomes are working on, some sort of magical device to give them immortality like the elves have. So it's there's an intriguing story going on, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing where that story goes. So where it left me at the end of this first session was enough for me to go, I'm gonna keep playing this game and see what I think. So here's my question for you as we get to the end of this video. Have you ever played this game? If you have, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Um, and of course, if you like the video, don't forget, like it. That helps out with the algorithm. Follow along the channel, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get updates for future content. You can join our Discord if you want. The links for that are below. I'm not going to be streaming this game, but I am going to be doing a review on it once I finish it up, which probably will be towards the end of November. I'm kind of planning on playing this all the way through, this month at least, while Chris isn't here, because I still have lots of free time on my hand while she's visiting family. Um, so we'll see how this turns out by the time I get to the end. In the meantime, thanks so much for following along. Let me know what you think about this game if you've played it before, and stick around for the next video and all the other things I do here on YouTube. Thanks so much, and I'll see everybody next time.